Hi guys, Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create my faux leather technique. And so we're going to be making something that's very similar to this. So I'll show you how to create these lovely fine crackles over here, and I'll show you how to make this bead cap or cord cap, and I'll show you how to make these. And this is basically a necklace we're going to be making, but the colours will be a little bit different. So you can see that, oops, these are supposed to go in here, and that's how you fit on the necklace, and then there's the necklace. So this is what we're going to be making. Now I just want to bring over a few examples of this technique before we get started. So here's my first one where I first came across this technique, and so you can see here that we have those lovely little fractures. So that's the first one, and then I basically perfected it on this necklace here. Let me just bring that over. So you can see that we have some different colours here, so depending on what alcohol inks you put on will depend on what different sorts of colours you're going to get. But basically here's another one, it's the exact same technique. And then finally this is my latest one, which is where I'm happiest with it. So what you're going to need is a piece of plain white polymer clay. So I'll just bring that forward for you to see. And this is what you're going to need. This is plain premo. It works with Kato as well. I have tried Kato and premo. I have not tested Fimo yet, but do feel free to try it out and see if it works. But you do want to have white polymer clay. And then you want a variety of different alcohol inks. And I basically decide on the alcohol inks as I go. So first one I think shall be bottle, and I like working with the Adirondack. Now I have only tried the Adirondack on this technique. You can try Pinata. I'm pretty sure that the Pinata will work, but I have only tried this brand of alcohol ink. Now I'm just going to use my finger to kind of marble this around onto the sheet of polymer clay. Then I'm going to bring over some botanical, and any colours will work. So I'm going with the green colour because that's my favourite, but any colour choice will work. Then we'll kind of marble that around. And now as far as putting the alcohol inks on, it doesn't really matter in what pattern you put it in. It really doesn't matter. This is more about colour choice than anything else. How you do this won't actually affect the technique. You just want to put in a bunch of colours that you like. And I also want to bring in some expresso, and I just want a little bit of this. So one drop there, and I'll just move that around. Okay, and so I'm pretty happy with the colours at the moment. You will have many more chances later on to add more colour, but for the moment that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so next thing that we're going to need is some 99% alcohol. Now your alcohol has to be strong, no lower than 99%, because otherwise it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Now I'm going to spray this in a really heavy dose onto your sheet so that it's basically swamped, and you want to just let that sit for a little while. And then I'm going to bring over a wet wipe, and you're going to need lots of wet wipes for this, and I'm going to drape it over it and gently smooth it over. And pick up, and I'll touch it again. You want to dry off all of that alcohol basically. And now you don't want to be rubbing back and forth, you want to be dabbing at this moment. Okay. Then we're going to spray again, and you'll see the method to my madness in a minute. Basically what the alcohol is doing, the 99% alcohol, is it's drying out the surface of the clay, and that is what we're trying to do at the moment. It also removes the colour to a certain degree, but that is also what we want. But mainly the purpose over here is to be drying out the surface of the polymer clay. So that's why we're going to be placing it on then dabbing it off and then putting some more on. Just like that. And I also want to just go back and gently wipe away anything. And then one more spray should be enough. So it does use up a lot of this alcohol. And what you can also do, if you have time, is you can also just let the alcohol dry off of the surface of the clay. That works to a certain degree as well. It works just as well if you don't want to be using up so much alcohol. If you'd only have to do it a few times if you were to let it dry, but it does take a lot longer. So just dabbing it off and spraying again and dabbing it off and spraying it again works a lot faster. There we are. So now we'll test to see if it started to crack. So I'll lift that up. And we do need it to be dry, so I'm going to just bring over another wet wipe and just wipe away. And so you can see that the clay has lost its sheen. So if I bring over here, you can see that the clay shines. I rotate this, you can see it's lost its shine, except for over here where there's still a little bit of moisture. And so now I just want to actually zoom in the camera just a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Now watch as I stretch. Hopefully you can see that it's starting to crack. And now very fine cracks at the moment. We want to highlight those. There you are, that's how you start it. And then the more times you spray the alcohol, the better your cracks are going to be. So now I'm just going to zoom out again for you. And now we're going to apply some more alcohol ink. And this time I'm going to bring over some ginger. And I'm just going to dab on a bit. And you can see that it starts to fracture out. I'm actually just going to rub it over the surface because I mainly want this in the cracks. I don't want it so much on the surface of the polymer clay. So we'll wipe that away with the alcohol ink later on. So basically a technique over here is just to get those cracks, which is done by spraying your 99% alcohol over and over again. The rest is basically just random because you actually can't get the same effect twice. So this part that I'm doing here is just what I've chosen to do. So however you do it is completely up to you. You don't need to worry about it. Anything after you've done anything apart from spraying it with the alcohol is completely up to you. So now I'm just going to bring this over, which is the wet wipe again, and I want to just gently wipe over the surface. See if I can get rid of any. And then we're going to spray with the alcohol again. And I'll bring over a clean wet wipe. Gently go across the surface. And you can see that it really gives a wonderful effect. And we'll crack each time you spray the alcohol, it dries out the surface even more, which means that you will get more cracks. So if you don't like the really fine cracks, you can just carry on spraying and you'll get even more cracks. So you can see it, we have fine cracks over here, but some really nice big ones over here. So I'm trying to get nice big ones all over the place. So I'll just dry that off again. And now to get another thing that isn't random is the fact that we can highlight these cracks. The way you do that is by applying a fairly light colour or a high contrasting colour to the surface of the clay when you begin, such as the green, and then when you crack it and get a whole bunch of the cracks, you want to then apply a high contrasting colour like the brown, and this is what's going to help those cracks show up. And now essentially we have actually wiped off all of the alcohol ink. It's just the stains that are actually left, and that is why it goes lighter, because the alcohol ink stained the clay. before we sprayed the alcohol ink. So you do want to let your alcohol ink rest on the clay just a little while before you start spraying the 99% alcohol, because you do want it to stain the clay, otherwise you'll just end up wiping it all off and it will end up being white polymer clay. So now I'm just stretching it some more, and I'm bringing it up so you can see what it looks like. It looks absolutely wonderful at the moment. Just stretch it a little bit more. Now you don't want to be running this through a pasta machine if you want to highlight those cracks, because if you run it through a pasta machine it will flatten it out and you won't get all of those grooves. So you want to be hand stretching it. Okay, now I want to actually bring over a tiny bit of turquoise. Strange colour idea, but I'm going to drip it in here and see what happens. And I actually like that. I'll drip a little bit more here because I want to highlight those cracks that we just got, because by spraying the alcohol, 99% alcohol on again, you're going to be getting more cracks, and so I'm now highlighting those new ones that we didn't highlight before with the turquoise. And then I'm going to bring over the ginger again and highlight these areas. And you want to spread it out so that it gets into those cracks. Highlighting the cracks is very important, otherwise you don't get the full effect. It's a really fun technique, and depending on what colours of alcohol ink you're using, you're going to get a completely different effect. So play around with it, and please do send in photos of what you do using this technique, and please share it to the groups and let everybody know what a cool technique it is if you liked it. It's one of my favourite ones to play around with. Okay, and I might just add a tiny bit more turquoise down the centre. And now, because the clay has basically been dried because of the 99% alcohol, you're not really going to get a stain anymore. So any of these colours is basically only going to appear in the cracks. So the colour of your surface clay, the part that's not the cracks, is going to be dictated to by what colours you used in the beginning. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to spray again and let that rest just a tad to lift up the alcohol ink. Then spread this over the surface, and this will help lift up those colours. Now I'm actually very gently going to burnish the surface of the clay. You can get some cool effects by doing that, like here, where you actually remove the top surface of clay and you can actually expose some of the white underneath. So there's a good example of it. So you do want to do that, it creates a really cool effect. Don't push too hard, you basically almost want to do it as though you're sanding it. And don't push too hard. If it doesn't want to lift up, it doesn't want to lift up. And you can always spray some more alcohol, and that tends to help with this, because by doing this you're just going to be adding another layer of effect, and it's going to start appearing milky because, as you can see here, because you are lifting up clay particles, and so that you want to clean off later on. So to clean off, just spray more alcohol, grab your wet wipe and gently wipe over the surface. But I think it looks best when you basically trying to remove that top layer, because then it really makes those cracks shine through, like over here and over here. It really looks nice. So I'll spend some time doing that. Oops. Just trying to remove a lot of this top colour because it's a little bit dark, and so I want the cracks to shine a little bit more. So just carry on rubbing and trying to get off that surface colour. Okay, so here we are now that I have finished basically almost scrubbing it. And so I went a bit further than I usually would so that I get some really nice outline around these crackles, because usually I'd basically stop around over here, but I really wanted some nice areas like over here and over here. And so you could carry on, you could add another layer of ink to expose more cracks, because you're going to have a little bit more cracks. You can spray more alcohol ink if you want, but then you're going to have to scrub again. I'm quite happy with how it looks, so I want to leave it the way it is. Now, this is the one technique which I showed you in the donut before, but there is another slight variation on the technique that I showed you over here. And so if you look here, you can see that we have these streaks going through this, so it almost has this weird veining in it. So I'm going to show you how to create that now. So you're going to need another sheet of white polymer clay, and this again is premo. And all we are going to use this time is pitch black. Now, just a thing to point out when you're doing this technique is you're going to be spraying this alcohol on it, and what it does sometimes is it splits the colours in your inks. So if you were paying very close attention last time when we sprayed the alcohol on this one, you might have seen that it split into almost like a red and a yellowish colour. So it had definite patches of different colours. That's because it kind of split, and I've just found that that's something that these types of inks do. The pinatas I haven't played around with enough to tell, but I do know that the Adirondack ones do that. So this one creates a really interesting split. So pitch black turned into this. It split into a purple and a blue colour. So I will show you what that looks like now. But first what we want to do is we want to create those streaks. So to make these lines, you're going to need a craft knife, or a blade will work, and you want to take the sharp end of that craft knife, and you just want to kind of wiggle those lines in, and just twist your blade and let it go the way it wants to go. And I don't like to overdo these lines. I don't want to put in too many. Just want a few. Okay, and then just brush off any excess clay that might have happened to come along while you were busy putting in the lines. Okay, so that should be enough. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring over our pitch black liquid clay. And let me just open that. It's been a while since I opened it, so it's a little bit crusty. Here we are. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop a few drops on. So you can see there is black, but if I smear it a little too thin, you can see it's almost like an eggplant colour. It's definitely more purple than black, in my opinion. So I don't really like to use this as a black colour in the alcohol ink, because it's not really black, it's more of a really dark purple. Really does remind me of the skin of an eggplant, or brinjal as we call it in South Africa. There we are. So that's what it's going to look like. Now we do want to let that sit there for a little while to let it stain into the clay, because that's going to be quite important later on. So I will probably leave that for around 2 minutes, and then I'll come and spray the alcohol ink on. Okay, so it's been a little while, and so now we are ready to spray our alcohol ink on. So I'll just grab this and give it a good spray, and hopefully you can see that the colour has changed completely. It's definitely separating out. So hopefully you can see that. Now I'll bring over this, and you can see that it definitely does contain, it definitely is a purple colour. If I should lift that up, and there, most of the red actually lifts off. Blue stains and the red basically gets lifted off. Then I'm going to spray it again. You can see that it's separating some more. And I'll lay this over. And this is why I don't like to use it for anything else, because it splits very easily, and I don't really like it in other techniques when it splits. doesn't exactly look that great, I think, but I think it works really well for this technique. I love the look of it. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that over. I'll spray a little bit more. Dab that off, and then I can assess how dried out it's become. You can see the tile gets quite messy, so I'll be able to feel here whether the clay is dried out at all, and it doesn't seem to be drying out yet. So I'll spray some more, and basically you'll just carry on until you can run your finger over it and tell that it has dried out. And that just comes from practice. If you've done any work with a heat gun, you'll know what the clay feels like when its top feels dry. But at the moment this doesn't feel like that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to spray this, and I'm going to leave it for a little while and let it actually air dry a bit. And you can blow on it to get it to evaporate a bit more, but I'm going to leave it like that and let it dry. Okay, so it feels like it's dried out quite a bit now, so I'm just going to gently lift this up. I'm just gently going to start pulling away, and now you've got to be careful because those lines that you created generally are quite deep, so I like to pull with the line instead of against it. So instead of pulling this way so that we're pulling the lines apart, I'm pulling them so that they become longer, so that I don't accidentally separate the clay or anything. But hopefully you can see that it is cracking. So I'd say that after you've sprayed it around 3 to 5 times with the 99% alcohol, it should have cracked. Okay, there we are. I'll actually bring my roller over and just gently give it a roll. And then I'm going to bring over the black again, and I'm going to drip it on a little bit and rub it over so that we can highlight those areas with the cracks. I need another drop over here. There we are. And as I said, each one turns out completely differently each time, so you can't replicate it really. So even on the same sheet you're going to get different looks. There we are. Spray, bring over another wet wipe. Now it's important to not use the same wet wipe too many times. You do want it to be clean so that it sucks up that colour. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I did before, and I'm actually going to start burnishing to get rid of that top layer of alcohol ink that we applied just a little while ago, and just expose the lighter coloured one underneath so that the cracks start to appear. And I want to get through to the white actually. So you can see that I'm really burnishing it, but you can see that a lot of colour comes off. So just switch to a different area on your wet wipe that's a little bit more clean, and you'll find that the colour starts to come off easier. So just remember every now and then to switch to a cleaner side of your wet wipe. And there we are, it's starting to come out, it's looking great. And now you can use as many colours of alcohol ink as you want. I just thought that this one's quite nice because it has quite a few shades in one alcohol ink. So the black's one of my favourites to use for this technique because it stains, it has a lot of difference in the stains, so hopefully the camera can pick this up. I think it might be out of focus at the moment, there we are. So hopefully you can pick up over here that we have different shades of colour. We've got some greenish blue areas, and then we've got some reddish brown areas. So I just want to spray this one last time, and you can see that the colour changes instantly because the alcohol ink reacts to it. We'll just wipe that away, and that will just make removing the colour a little bit easier. might need to switch to a new wet wipe. And so like before, I'm just going to carry on working at this until I am happy with it. I want to get a lot of areas like over here. So I'll just continue working at it. And as you can see, there are a bunch of lines in between here, so it's not one solid sheet of Crackle. So it just adds a different effect. Now you could go crazy with that. You could add any sort of lines you wanted. So maybe you wanted round lines, so you could get a cutter, like a round cutter, and make an interesting pattern. There's so many things that you can do with this technique to improve it or just add to it, so be sure to play around with it, and please do send photos of any of your experiments. I always love to see those. And so I'll just continue working at this until I'm happy with it. Okay, so I'm quite happy with how it looks. Now I just want to give it a final spray with the alcohol to kind of get that ink to separate, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry for just until basically it's dried, so the alcohol goes back down onto the clay. But because it's the the alcohol over here has separated the colours and brought out that red tone, I really want the red tone to stay. So instead of just soaking this up, I might just soak up a little bit over here because it's a little bit too much red for my liking. There we go. I'm just going to let this sit. So we have a little bit over here that's not cooperating, and we'll see how that looks, and if it doesn't look great then we can just spray the alcohol on again and then wipe it off. But I do want to try and get this nice red tone, so I might just mess with it a little bit to even this out. So I'm just going to rub this over. And there, we'll see how that goes. It's looking quite interesting. Then I'll just wipe it and see if any of that's stuck. And it did stick a little bit. And it's recoloured the clay a little bit, so it's taken a little bit of that white away, which is nice because I don't want it to be too white. But there we are, that's good. Okay, so now I want to do is I'm just going to lift this up gently, and I'm going to clean off this tile, and I'm just going to wipe it with my hand to get it to dry off, because we want this clay to stick, or at least the bottom of the clay. I'm going to pop it onto the tile, and then I'm going to bring over my acrylic roller and gently roll over the surface, because you can see that some of these lines are separating. So just want to roll over the surface a bit. See if we can get some of those lines to join. If they don't, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over a sheet of white and place this on top of it so that it has a little bit more structural integrity, because at the moment it's trying to fall apart, as you can see. So I'm just going to go and get a sheet of white and place it on the back. Okay, so I've got a sheet of white. I'm just going to place that over the top and smooth it to get rid of air bubbles. Let's see if I can lift this up. Might have to actually smooth it down a little bit more aggressively. And I'll trim and then pick it up. Okay, and there we are. So compared to the other one, which I'll show you in just a second, this one's a lot more, for lack of a better word, grimy. It's a lot more rustic, and it's darker, and it's just a completely different style. So there you can see that it's holding together a bit better. Then I'll bring over the other one, and you can see it, the colour difference is tremendous. This one's a lot darker, so depending on what colours you use, you're going to get a completely different effect. And so I'm just going to gently smoosh this together so that those lines do stick together, so you can see what it looks like. So those lines are always going to be visible, so you can see there's quite a difference between these two. In this one I rubbed off quite a bit more of the white, so that it look different. This one I've left it with a lot of the ink still on, so it's a lot darker. So now what I want to do is I just want to run this through a pasta machine to flatten it out. So I'm not sure which setting this would be on at the moment. I'm presuming it would be on a 6, which is one down from my thickest setting. Just roll that through. That's what it looks like. Go take it down one more setting to my number 5 and roll it through. And there we are, because I do want it to be nice and flat. Now this one I'm pretty sure is going to be on my thickest setting. So I'll take that over to my thickest setting and run it through. And there we are, that's what I wanted. Because I don't like it having such a dark tone. So now we've got a lot more of those white crackles. So if you didn't want that, but you did want it to be a nice even sheet, what you could do now is you could go back with your alcohol ink, colour it, and then just rub it again, and these cracks would fill in. But I quite like the look of the white cracks. So now we can move on to creating our project. Okay, so now that we have finished up creating our sheets, we are now ready to start creating the project. So first thing we are going to want to make is this donut. So I was thinking, instead of taking this sheet and putting one circle on this side and then another circle on this side, I was thinking we'd have this sheet on one side and this sheet on the other side, so we have an alternating pendant. And then one of these can be this, and then two of these can be one of these, and then one of these can be one of these. So I'll explain that later on. I'm going to make a more interesting one than this. It's going to have a little bit more colour variation. So we're going to need a circle cutter. I'm going to be using these for our circle, and you can get these on Jessima Design. There's an entire circle set and I sell them on Jessima Design. These ones are my test ones, so they're much better designed, the ones that I am selling. These are just the ones that I've been testing. So what we're going to want is to take a circle of this and just twist. And I actually want to place this in the middle, and this can be a little tricky, so my head needs to be just above over here. Okay, press that in. And now a different way to do it is to press this one in first. So I'll push that in and then use your cutter this way around to position it. And I find that this one can be easier than doing it the opposite way around, but you still need to get your head in over here. Okay, and so that one is my preferred method, but I showed the other one as well because that's another way for you to do it if you wanted to. So I'll just move that out the way, and we will gently pick these up. Just pop that out, and there's your donut. And here's the other one. Pick that up gently, pop that out, and there's your donut. So I'll just pop that aside. And now we're going to do the same for this one. So I'm going to be using the second technique that I showed you. I just want to choose a place that I like. I think I'm going to be over there. So I'm going to press this one in first. And when you're using the circle cutters, just twist, and it will give you a really nice finish. Instead of just pressing down and then lifting up, twist it and it gives a really nice finish. Now my head needs to be in the way again. And actually, just remembered that it's actually better to flip your sheet once you've cut out the hole over here. Bring over your donut that you want to use, place that over the hole, and just flip to make sure that your hole is right. I'll just use my finger in there to just smooth it out. Then flip it back around and burnish, and then cut it out, and that way your donut will fit properly. There we are. So there we are. You do want to do it like that, otherwise your donut sometimes won't fit. Almost forgot that. But there you are, so that's one side, that's the other side. So they both look really interesting. And we'll do the same for the other one. And I like to cut out my hole first with the small cutter, because then I can decide which area of the sheet I like, because if it's flipped over like this, I can't see what's going on the other side of the sheet. So I prefer to do it that way so that I can see what's going on. Now I'm just going to bring over a skewer. I'm going to use it to make this hole nice and even, just to smooth it out. Then I'll bring over my circle cutter again, press down and twist. It gives a nice clean finish. Put that up, and there we are, that's the other one. So you can see how different each of these effects are. This one with the line looks quite interesting. They both look cool. So now we've got 2 donuts because I want to be making 2 necklaces. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to place those to the side. And actually we're not going to do that yet. I'm going to bring over a small circle cutter because we need a place for the cord to fit in, or the jumpring to fit in, like over here. So let's decide the way we want this to hang. I think this should be where it is. So you want it fairly close to the edge, but not so close that you're going to break the wall. So that's how close I like to do it. Do the same on the other one. And just remember to pop this out because sometimes the clay does get stuck. And I think we'll have it hang from here. There we are. Okay, so now I'll put those aside and I will just pop that out. And now what we need to do is we need to make this over here. And this is actually made from the leftovers of our sheet. So I'm going to take this and this, and then I'll bring over each of our sheets. And now this area over here is fine, but we've definitely got areas that we won't be able to cut beads out from. So I'm just trimming up those areas. And I'll put this away, and you'll do the same on the other one. Because you need this clay. Okay, and I'll put that away. And this one I think I'm actually going to need more clay, so just trim up the edges here. And it's important to take it from the same sheet so you get the same colours. You can't make extra, you have to take it from the same sheet. So I just like to use my trimmings and things. Okay, so that I'll just put aside for a moment. And we'll take this and we'll basically just squish it up into a bundle. Like that. Roll it. Into a log. And twist. And then we'll fold it over. And squish it together. Basically do the exact same thing that you would for a Natasha bead. Okay, and then I'm just going to gently chop off this end and see what it looks like on the inside. So I'm pretty happy with it so far, but I think it needs to be a little bit more veined. So I'll roll it down one more time, twist it, and fold it in 4 again. And that will be good. We'll be able to use that. then just squish it up, and you want to form it into a square shape, or a rectangle I guess, and slice off the end, and that is what you have inside, which is what we're going for. And so I'll do the same for this one over here. Okay, so now that both of those are finished, we are ready to start making our extra components. So the first one that I want to make is the bead cap, and so what I'm going to be using is the end of my craft knife over here because it fits perfectly. So I'm just going to screw off this end because we don't want to be working with something that has a blade on the end. Put that out of the way, so now this is harmless. And so I'll put that aside, and we're going to make a bead cap from each of these. So I'm just going to slice 2 more pieces from here. We'll just piece them together like that. And I'll bring over my acrylic roller, and we'll just gently start rolling it before we take it over to a pasta machine, so that it at least somewhat stays in one piece when we take it to a pasta machine. And we're going to roll it through the pasta machine from either this end or this end so that we lengthen it. And I'm going to be doing it on my middle setting, which is a number 4. Here we go. So now it is an even thickness. I'm carefully going to trim off this excess. And I will trim up this end and this end. And now I want to work out how long our bead cap is going to be, and I think that that's a pretty good width. So I'll pick that up, bring it over to this, stick it down, and I like that this is metal because the polymer clay sticks to it quite nicely, so it makes my life easier. Then I'm gently going to wrap it round and press, and then unwrap it at that point. And it will leave a mark so that I know where to trim. Put that aside, we'll use that in just a second. Okay, and I'm just going to gently reposition this and fold it over and then smooth out that seam. Now don't worry about this top area at the moment. It's more the bottom area that we want to worry about. We want it to be quite nice and even, so I'm going to just bring my blade and gently butt it against the base over here to just flatten it out. And then I'll just press the top, and then bring this back over, and I'm going to bring over this cutter and see if it's big enough. You want a cutter that's going to fit the size of your bead cap. Use that to cut out a piece. And then I just want to stretch it a little bit. Okay. Then place that on top. And then we want to very gently smooth it in. So this is a delicate process because I don't want to smudge it too much, but it does need to be joined so that it's nice and secure. So I'm smudging down. Here, and I'm not worried about fingerprints at the moment, I'm just trying to get into shape. And then after that I'm going to use the base of my thumb to get rid of those fingerprints by just smoothing along the surface. and then I'll flatten out the top. And just spend extra time making sure that you get rid of all of those fingerprints, because that's the last thing we need. And then check the base, and then we are ready to heat gun it. So I'm just moving all of the stuff out of the way here, and then I'm going to bring over my heat gun, and I'm going to switch it on to the lowest, onto my first setting, and I'm just going to start heating it. And I'm actually going to switch up to my highest setting. So that's just to set it. So now I'm just going to go with my fingers and feel how set it is, and this needs to cool off slightly, so I'm going to go and plunge it into a bath of cold water. Okay, and so here it is out of the bath. Now we want to gently try to remove it from the cap, and I'm just going to be careful because I don't want to crack it or anything. There we are. Bit of a delicate process, but there we are. So there is our cap, and now we want it really long because we want to actually be able to fit in some findings in here. We're not going to be gluing our cords in. So this one you can see is a very loose fit, so we're not going to be gluing our cords in. But we actually have, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show this, but I have findings in there that have clamped the cords, and then the cords will all fed into here, and this is a head pin, so we have a little loop inside there that's holding all of the cord pieces. Then we have a loop in here so that it keeps it nice and snug inside the bead cap. So that is the first bead cap, and so you can see it goes quite nicely with this because this one has a little bit of purple tints to it, and it also goes quite nicely with this side. So now I'm going to make the same sort of thing using this one. Okay, so we're finally ready for the last part. The end caps over here are finished, and now we are going to create these end pieces that you see, and I've already done all of them except one, so they're looking like this at the moment. So now we're just going to make the last one using this. So I'll take a slice from this, and then I'm going to roll it inward, and just see, might need a little bit more. Okay, now I'm just going to roll that into a log to smooth it out. There we are. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just gently going to pinch one end and start to turn it into a cone. There we are. Want it in a rough cone at the moment. Then I'm going to bring over a skewer, and I'm gently going to drill into this. Okay, then I'm going to roll it against my work surface, and we'll get this point a little bit more pointy. There we go. and then I'll start to smooth off the sides, because we don't want any fingerprints, because that's going to be a pain to sand off of these. We do have to sand them, but you know, if you can avoid sanding, it's always best to do that. There you go. And I'll bring over a blade and I want to gently work this off. Now pick it up gently and put that to the side. And that is all we need. So we've got 3 from each colour. So here's 3 and here's another 3. So those are all done. And we also have the cones that need to be baked, and we have the initial beads that need to be baked. So these will all go into the oven for a full hour at Premo's recommended temperature. Then I can come back and show you how to just smear around the sides over here to tidy this up, and then we can start sanding these, and then we can actually start finishing the project. Okay, so all of our pieces are now finished baking. So I'll bring them over. Here's the one donut. Here's the other side. So you can see that this has gone a little bit more purple as it's baked, which is the alcohol splitting. Here's the other one. As you can see, it's also gone a little bit purple, which is quite nice. And then here's the other side. And then here are our 2 caps and our 3 for that one and our 3 for that one. So they're all done baking. Now these ones are basically finished, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put these all aside so they can get sanded in a little while, and these are basically they just need to smear along the side and then they'll be finished. So I'll bring over some white polymer clay. This is premo. Just need a little bit. Roll it up into a sausage. And then we're going to smear along the side. And I'll provide a link to the in-depth tutorial on this technique. It's got a lot of little tips and things that makes the process just overall a bit easier. And there we are, basically finished. Just need to fix up a little bit there. And there we are, put that aside, and you'll do the exact same for the other one. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to take the base of your finger and you're going to use it to just gently smooth along the edge over here, getting rid of all the bumps and the the fingerprints. And you also want to be smoothing at the top over here because some of the white's leaked over, so you want to get rid of that if you can. And just generally finish it up, because you can't do too much sanding on this because otherwise you'll sand right through it. You do want to sand it a little bit, but you want to get rid of any obvious fingerprints and bumps and things that will need a lot of sanding. And check this side to see if it's okay as well. And that's basically it. Now I just want to quickly get rid of all these little bits and pieces, and go bring over another little piece, and we actually want to smear along the inside of the donut here. So we're going to have to clean this up again. So it's on the inside, and now you just want to use your finger to smear around. Now this is a lot harder to do, but it makes quite a big difference later on. So I'll just compare this one to the one that I haven't done in a second, and you can see what a big difference this smear does to make it look finished. There we go. Just want to check along the inside to see if it's okay. Get rid of that. And now I'm going to take my little finger and I'm just going to smooth along the inside over here to get rid of any problems. Because this area we're not really going to be able to sand, just because it's a very inaccessible area. So just try to finish it up as much as you can. Okay, and then just go back around the outside because you probably made a few dings in it. Okay, and that's it. So now let me just wipe this away and I can show you the difference. It's a very small difference, but it does make quite a big impact. So you can see the sides here are much cleaner and the inside's a lot cleaner as well. So it's definitely worth doing that. Just spend a little bit of time trying to get rid of the white that might have climbed up onto the edges here. And then you can pop this back into the oven for half an hour and then we can sand everything. Okay, so while those are in the oven, we are going to start sanding these, which can be quite a pain but is necessary. So I'll just choose one, so we'll use this one, I guess. The rest will be sanded in the exact same way. Basically, you'll just bring over some sanding papers, and I'm going to be using sanding or polishing papers. Whoops. And you're just going to start sanding. Now you can either sand like this, or you can sand like this, which is my preferred method for these ones. And I turn the bead as I sand, so I don't sand in one spot for very long because otherwise you'll get a flat spot. So I'm just turning this as I sand. And now I don't want these super glossy, so I'll probably sand up to a 1200 grit instead of all the way up to an 8000, because the beads that are in the oven right now, our donut pendants, they're not going to get sanded and they're not going to be shiny. So I don't want these to distract, so I'm going to sand these to like a satin finish. But at the moment they do need to sand so they can get a little bit cleaned up, and also just so that they can look a bit better. So basically you'll just carry on sanding the whole way around, and then also don't forget the edge or the bottom of the piece. Just give it a quick sand along the bottom and that will sand up. And you'll basically do the exact same for all of these. These you'll sand along the sides, sand the top and sand the bottom. And then once those are finished sanding, I can start showing you how to put some Renaissance wax on, and then we can string. Okay, so everything is out of the oven and these are all sanded nicely, and these ones I've also just gone and sanded the sides over here where the smear was, so it's less grimy and is nice and smooth. And I basically sanded that from a 400 grit all the way up to a 120. So now we are ready to start applying some Renaissance wax. And I'm just going to bring over an old polishing paper for that. Just going to dip into there and just move these out of the way. And I'm just going to gently apply that Renaissance wax. Now I don't want a big clump of wax to get into the texture, so I'm just being careful how I apply it. And then I'm just going to burnish that on. Now if you have a buffing wheel, it's much better to use a buffing wheel, but you can just hand buff it as well. And just remember to do sides as well. And you also want to do the other side as well. And you'll do this with the other donut, and you'll also cover all of the other bits and pieces that we have sanded in Renaissance wax as well. Then you'll leave it to cure for about 10 minutes, and while that's curing we can actually move on to starting to create our necklace. Okay, so now while our pendants are curing, we're waiting for the Renaissance to cure, we are going to start the necklace. So I've got 3 bunches of 4 here with different colours of hemp that I like, and I also have these crimps that we are going to fit each of our hemp pieces into. So this part can be a little tricky. Just want to get that to fit in. just twisting because it sometimes helps it get in. And actually I think I'm going to do it in bunches of 3 instead. Maybe that will make it easier. And then we can plait it in groups of 4 later. There we are, that fitted in much better. Then I'm going to gently squish it flat. Now the important thing is the crimps do need to have this loop on it. Now I'm just going to give it a quick yank to see if it's okay. And it is, so I'm just going to set that aside. Then grab another group of 3. You can see there's a bunch of hemp over here. And I've just chosen random colours that seem to match with our pendant. No colours in particular. I bought all of these off of Fire Mountain Gems, so they came from these packets over here. And I'll provide links to where you can get them, so that you can get the same colours. But basically I've just chosen some colours that match nicely with what these look like. And so I'll just carry on fastening these crimps on until I've got 4 pieces, and then we can attach that into our bead cap. Okay, so we've got all of our hemp pieces finished up. So now I'm going to bring over our end cap and a pin drill, and I want to just drill a hole in the top of the bead cap. Gotta be careful with my finger here actually. And this is really simple. There we are. And we do need that. Now I'm going to bring over a head pin. Just straighten that out. Trim off the top. And I'm going to make an itsy bitsy loop on the end. This can be tricky, but the tinier the loop, the better. There we are. Okay, then I'll open up that loop and I'll bring over each of our pieces and I will slide them on one at a time. This bit can get a little fiddly. Grab the top of our loop and close it so it holds all of those pieces together quite snugly. There we go. Then we're going to thread that through this hole . Slide that in, so now you can't see those at all. Give it a quick bend. Bring over our snipping pliers. Grab this. Make a nice tidy loop on the top. Okay, and then we'll attach our clasp to that later on. And actually, we're not going to attach our clasp. There's no clasp to be attached now that I remember. Silly me. Actually want a fairly large jump ring. Whole point of this necklace isn't to have a clasp. Ish. There you go. Grab that. Grab that. Close it up. And there's the first part. Now what we want to do is we want to separate these into strands. We want to separate them into groups of 4. So this can be a little tricky. So here is one group. I'm going to try and keep that separate. Then I'm trying to get this group sorted out. There we are. There's another group. And we have now 3 groups. And now we want to plait them. So what I'm going to do is, this might jog the camera a little bit, but it's the best way I can think of to do this, is I'm going to just pop the donut down onto the back over there. There's a little hook on the tripod, so you need to loop your donut onto something so that it can't move while you're holding this, so you can put tension on these, and then you want to plait. So you're not going to be able to see the beginning of the plait, but you'll be able to see it as it goes. And so once I get up here, I can show you what I'm doing. So you'll want to do a tighter plait than what I'm doing, but I just want to get up here quickly so I can show you what it looks like. There we are. Starting to move up. Now as you're plaiting, you need to be careful to not let your strands get entangled. Now here you are. So one over, bring one in. And you want to do a plait kind of like this so that you get a nice tight fit. So I need to go back and do this. As you can see that my cord's got a little bit tied up there. So try to avoid your cords getting tied up. And just give it a nice tight plait like this. And so I will go back and do this the whole way along for my piece. And I'll just show you how it's been looped. So you can see at this beginning plait wasn't very good, but you want to have an entire piece that has a plait like that. And then once that's finished, I can show you how to attach the end pieces. Okay, so I have finished plaiting it the whole way along. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop this over here to keep it out of the way. And we have these end pieces over here. So what I want to do is I don't want this plait unraveling. So I'm just going to take it up just a little bit more. And I'm actually just going to put these strands like this, and I'm going to deliberately select. So I don't want to take the exact same ones that are in the plait over here. So I don't want to take this clump and this clump together. I want to take some from here. I'm going to take one here and maybe one right out of the middle here. So they're all from different clumps, and this will stop the piece from unraveling once we put those little pieces on. So what I'm going to do is I just want to trim this, and I've got to do this with some hands over here holding this so that it doesn't unravel. So it's a bit, difficult. So I'm going to hold this like that, and I'm going to bring over one of these, and I'm going to bring over some E6000. And we'll see if that will open. This might be one of the dry bottles. Hoping it's not. There we are, it's got stuff in it. Okay, so we've got that flowing. Now I'm going to grab a bit and I want to actually put that inside there, and you don't need much. So I'll just quickly put that back on. Then I'll grab these, which I've been holding on to. I'll take those ends and pop them into here with that glue, and then we'll leave that alone. Now I'm going to take two pieces from here, two from here. And actually I can risk letting go now. And I'll just trim those up a little bit. And now I'm not trying to get them the same length, I'm actually trying to do the opposite. I want them to be a little bit quite different in length, which will make it look interesting. So don't try to get your cords all the same size in the 3 different clumps. Then I'll grab one of these purple ones and I will stuff that E6000 down there, or at least I'll try to. Giving me a little bit of trouble. There we go. This is probably the toughest part of the project, so you might want someone else on hand to give you an extra hand, because it's just a little bit tricky to get all of this together with only your 2 hands. So if you can, get somebody else over to help you out, because I'm struggling to do this with just my 2 hands. So save yourself some trouble. Ask for a help. Yeah, grab some more E6000, dip that in there, and pop on the last 2 and put them as deep as you can in there. The E6000 will hold them. Okay, now this might look a little bit straggly. It will definitely look like that, but as you can see, that's not going anywhere. It's just going to look nice and straggly back here. You could trim the cords a little bit closer to here, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have this nice straggly end over here. So you could trim them much closer like this if you wanted to, but I didn't really want to. Okay, and then I'll bring our pendant back around. Now you can wear it this way around, or you can wear it this way around. Now I don't really want to be messing with these ends at the moment, because they could come out, so I don't really want to risk that. Just making sure that they're in. Okay, and so you'll want to leave that to dry for 24 hours before you actually start wearing it. But when you do come to wear it, just pop these through the hole over here, and so I'll just take that over to the side. What you want to do is you want to bring them through the side hole over here. So you'll wrap that around your neck, and then you'll bring them through side hole, and this will come down. So you'll wear it this way around with this coming out. It doesn't work so well this way around, so you'll wear it like that. And that is how it works. So that's basically it. I'm going to make another necklace for this one over here with these pieces, and so I'll make that, and then you'll be able to see a photo of that. But basically that's it for this tutorial, and so I do hope that it was helpful to you, and if it was, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And please do send in photos of what you make using this project. There are so many things that you can use with this technique. You don't have to make this project. I've got a few bezels over here that I am busy making using this technique. So you can see it, they make really nice bezels. And I'll be selling these on my Etsy shop, Jessima Design, if you're interested. And so please do experiment, and please do send in photos of what you do using this technique, no matter what experiments you do. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now!